Good evening. Welcome to Los Fresnos meeting. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. At this time, we'll go ahead and stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Mark, if you'd like to lead us on the invocation, please.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for today, and we ask your guidance on our officials today as they conduct the business of the city. We pray that your hand be in all that we do, and that you continue to bless the city. Special prayer for Polo, and we ask for his healing, and we just ask you to be with all of us as we go forward. In your name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we have a visitor's remarks, and this is Ivy J. Arroyo. If you'd like to come up. Not sure if the timer is up, but go ahead and come on up. Thank you.
Thank you very much for obviously your service, everything that you do for your community. It means a lot to the people that you serve. I'm Ivy Arroyo with McCrary, Veselka, Bracken, Allen. Last month I came in and gave a very detailed report on our services as in regard to the collection of fines and fees from municipal courts. And at the time of our meeting, I believe everybody on the council had a tremendous amount of questions for me that spurred some questions and needed some answers. And at the time, we were instructed by your attorney that wasn't part of the agenda. So you instructed that I'd be on the next agenda item for a question and answer. And so I came in from Austin today to find out if there was maybe a typo or there'd been a change or what the protocol was, because that was what's in the minutes. So that's all I came for, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arroyo, for being here today. At this time, we're going to move on to a presentation and discussion on municipal court commission collections and fines, or fees and fines by Lemberger, Gogan, Blair, and Sampson. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the audience. My name is John Guevara, and I'm with Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson. I'm an equity partner in our firm, and I manage the firm's Brownsville office. I kind of wanted to give you a little bit of presentation about what we do. And I'm going to also show a slide, a little video, short video, that'll give you an idea of the resources that we have. If you'll bear with me a moment. And I need to...
Lemberger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson, this is Italia. How can I help you?
Okay, hold on, it's not projecting.
To restart the PowerPoint because that's what's stopping it.
Okay.
Lemberger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson, this is Italia. How can I help you?
We're a technology law firm. We have the most sophisticated data communications network from the call center perspective. We've invested tens of millions of dollars into our infrastructure. We have just recently completed implementation of our new dialer system, which gives us a much more intelligent handling of calls. A lot of our clients are pleased to know that we do record 100% of our phone calls. So every call that comes in or every call
2003. I got here with 15 collectors, roughly 30 or 40 clients. Now I have a staff of 80 and about 800 core clients, so we've grown tremendously. Of the 74 collection personnel that we have, I have 8 supervisors, each one running a group of anywhere from 8 to 15 collectors. There's very thorough supervision on a daily basis. They monitor calls, they review cases.
Same level of expertise that other agencies don't have. What differentiates us from the other firms out there, the other agencies that are out there, is that 100% of our calls are handled by firm employees. We don't outsource anything. How we handle these calls is very important to our clients. Our clients have a high standard for communicating with their customers. And we, as an extension of these clients, want to make sure that we control all aspects of that phone call. To outsource it.
Call center in San Antonio, and he's a big part of our team. But we have other members, and so what I'm going to do now is just kind of go over what we have, what we're collecting for on the city. We're going to give you a report, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. So I'm going to go slide by slide here, and so basically. Like I said, I manage the Brownsville office and I manage all the fees and fines collections for all the entities here in Cameron County. And so I'm very involved in it on a day-to-day basis. The difference is I'm an attorney and I can give you legal advice on that, and we constantly communicate with your staff, with your court staff. So a little bit about Linebarger. We're the largest most successful collection law firm covering collecting government receivables in the country. Our qualifications include, we've got 27 staff members in Brownsville. Some of them are from here in Los Fresnos. We have been successful representing government entities for about 40 years, and we have over 2,400 government clients, as well as about 500 individual courts that we collect municipal fees for. We pioneered the delinquent fees and fines collections when we went out and talked to our clients who knew us for collecting delinquent taxes. When the state law changed that you could have a 30% add-on fee onto municipal fines, that was a good thing for entities. That was good because instead of the whole population of Los Fresnos and Harlingen and San Benito and Cameron County, instead of all the citizens paying for the cost to go after the delinquent defendant who did not show up to pay their fine when they were supposed to, when they were instructed to, this 30% add-on that the statute calls for allows that 30% to be used to pay for the cost of collection. Without that, the people who are innocent, who didn't commit an offense, are the ones paying for it. And in 2004, I'm the one that came to the city of Los Fresnos and told you about that 30% add-on, and you passed the 30% add-on then, and we've been collecting for you ever since. And I'm going to show you what a successful track record and partnership that has been. It all starts with a staff. First of all, we're attorneys. You're represented by attorneys. I can get up here and tell you, give you legal advice. I can't guarantee an outcome. I can't make statements that non-attorneys can make because I'm stuck. I'm stuck because I've got to follow the Code of Criminal Procedure. I've got to follow the statute. I've got to follow the state bar, and I've got to follow the rules that the state Supreme Court has set. So Attorneys have a level of ethical standard that we have to keep. I cannot give you advice that will guarantee anything. I can give you legal advice on here are the pluses, here are the minuses, and that's a decision that you can make. But somebody that can come up here and guarantee something is not an attorney, and that's a difference. Our operating staff, like in the video, it showed that we had about 80 individuals at that call center, but there's also an additional 75 individuals who are back in the background, making sure that the files are entered correctly, research is conducted, and we can go out and try to collect for you. That includes system architects, network engineers, security experts, and remember, we're talking about sensitive data, which is extremely important. We have to protect that. And it's important to us because we represent clients all over the country. We represent school districts, cities, counties, state governments. We collect receivables from many states. And so we have to have that security in place, and we have to have those standards in place. You may have heard about the Federal Debt Collection Act. And a lot of individuals who owe money, a collector will call them, and then the individual has a right to challenge the debt. And so there are certain rules that you need to follow on the Federal Debt Collection Act and the Texas Debt Collection Act. This is not a consumer debt. It does not fall under the Federal Debt Collection Act or the Texas Debt Collection Act. As an attorney, I can give you that knowledge, but you may have heard that applies. That doesn't mean we don't follow the same rules, but this is not a consumer debt. Consumer debt is like JCPenney or Dillard's, an amount that's owed where two parties agreed to provide services or trade with one another. So like I mentioned, we provide customer service to clients all over the country, over 2,400 governments nationwide. And our process is very similar to our delinquent tax collection process. It all starts with getting files from your court. We deal with your court. We get the files on a regular basis. The first thing we do is do address research, skip tracing. We want to make sure that the data is correct, the individual hasn't moved. Sometimes with the files that we get from the court are not the tickets that occurred 2 months ago. They might be 3 or 4 years old that we're trying to collect for you. So we want to make sure that we're going after the correct individual. There's a lot of Robert Goddesses. Sorry, there's a Robert Goddess in the audience, but there are a lot of Robert Goddesses. There are very few John Guevaras. But we have to do that address research, the skip tracing, before we load it into the system, and then we start sending out letters. The letters vary depending on the season of the year. If it's tax season, we want to capitalize on that. If it's going to go out on a Wednesday so that it can hit on a payday, we want to do that. If it's going to go out at the end of the month, if there's a holiday on the end of the month, we don't want to do that. If your tax bills, the taxes that you've set the tax rate on are going to go out that month, we want to be careful not to crisscross them because people need to pay their taxes, and then we want to catch them when they have money to pay their fees and fines. So it takes a lot of thought behind the plan that we have on behalf of the city. Then we also start making phone calls, and you saw the video clip of our call center. Phone calls are made 6 days a week, both at home and at work, multiple times, and they're coordinated with the mailings that go out. So we're always doing something on your behalf. Here's a sample of some of the letters that go out. They're in Spanish and in English, letting them know to contact the court. And the reason we have them contact the court is your court is in control. The Texas Code of Criminal Procedure allows for the judge, and only the judge, to make a decision about a hardship case. If we're collecting the money, there is no right to the citizen or the defendant to claim a hardship. Only the judge can do that. So what we do is we mail, we phone call, and we direct all the payments to the court. Can we collect for you? Absolutely. But then the court loses control. And your court, since 2004, has been operating unbelievably. You've got an excellent system. And I'll show you why in a bit. But that's the reason we refer payment to you guys. If your judge wants to get into a payment agreement with the individuals, then he has that authority to do that. If he wants to withdraw the file from our collection procedures, he can do that. If we're gonna do it and we're gonna collect, then you take away that right. So that's a difference than what you may have heard in the past. All right, so we're also supported by the call center, and this is just a few shots that you can see of the technology that's involved and the individuals that are involved and the oversight. This is kind of a repeat. So we constantly are investing in the infrastructure of our information technology. It's critical. A lot of that is in a disaster plan, in having backups, making sure that the data is secure. And so we're constantly trying to protect that information, especially today where things can be hacked. And so we're constantly trying to improve on our systems. You may have heard about a scofflaw, and our scofflaw is a little bit different than our competitors. First of all, what scofflaw is it prevents, if you owe a ticket, it goes into a system, and it prevents you from getting your vehicle re-registered, puts a hold on it. We're the only firm in Texas that can put a hold on a vehicle that has not paid its taxes, even though it's another vehicle in the household. What does that mean? If I own two vehicles and I get a ticket on vehicle A, I can put a hold on A and B. So when I go to B and pay, even though I haven't gotten a ticket on B, there's a hold there. And so we're the only firm in the state that can do that. And that's why our collection numbers are where they are. We also offer a client view portal where our clients can look to see what the active status is. Now, this is a little bit misleading. I can give our clients access to see what's going on, but we get files from the court periodically, 2-3 times a month. The data that we're getting is coming from the court, and the data that we're giving the court is the court's own data. So you're already getting that information, but we do offer the client view so that you can see what's going on. But your court gets those reports every month. When we exchange files, I get a report of the files that have been paid to the court, and the court has also given me accounts that they want us to collect. And at the end of the month, those are reconciled. So the data that I'm going to show you in a bit is actually your data. It's nothing I've done except put it in a nice chart. So you get that, you have that access all the time. So it's a little misleading where I'm giving you data or a view to your own data that you can see all the time as well. So this is kind of what it looks like. It gives the amount that's owed, whether it matches up the courts amounts, the license number, sensitive information that we have mainly from the ticket, and a little bit of the research that we've done on skip tracing. So the regular report, I provided a report a couple months ago to the city, and then I just updated it. This is as of April, and so I'm prepared to show you a little bit of what that report would include. And your city manager has asked me to kind of compile a report that you could probably see every month with the city manager's report, just to kind of get an idea on what that is. It's a lot of stuff. My wife, when I talk about this stuff to my wife, she's bored to death. This is stuff that I love. I love to dig into this stuff, but it's a little bit boring. But bottom line, on page 1, the far left-hand side, I can show you April's numbers and then contract to date. Contract to date is back from 2004. Now that's important, and I'll tell you why in just a moment, but contract to date, or for April, we got 376 cases assigned to us, and that was worth about $120,000. The citations that were collected were 172. Now that's not the same, that's not 172 from the 343, that's 172 that got paid from a prior month's placement. We collected a total of 74,928, and amount resolved was about $75,000. All those numbers are up from two months ago. They're considerably up. And I'll show you that in just a moment. But the contracted date is important because we're always collecting. We're always collecting, even old cases. And one of the reports that I shared with your city manager goes back into the 90s. So even though we got the contract in 2004, we're still working those old cases. And so I just wanted to point that out. At the bottom, you show the collection activity for April. There were 464 letters mailed out, 117 addresses that had to be updated. The phone activity was about 350 calls inbound and outbound. And contract to date, you can see just hundreds or thousands of letters and thousands of phone calls being made. So you'll get that update, cumulative update on each of these reports. On page 2 is the status of accounts. So most of them are clear. That means we're collecting. No, there are no bankruptcy codes. If we find out they're in bankruptcy, we'll code it, we'll stop, wait until they're done, and then try to collect again. If they're deceased, we code it as deceased, let your court know, but then we ask the defendant or the family to send us a death certificate so that we can send to the court and they can take it off the system. So it stays coded until we can verify that the death has occurred. But anyway, that's just an example. There could be examples where attorneys are involved, so we can't contact the defendant. We have to deal with the attorney, and these numbers just change every day. But this is a snapshot as of the end of April. This is a pretty good shot here on page 3, the left-hand side. This shows your monthly collection activity for each month for the last 2.5 to 3 years. And I have a bracket up there. The first bracket is the first 4 months of this year, where approximately $188,000, $189,000 was collected. That same period last year, $104,000 was collected. So it's almost doubled. And so that's significant, but you can see the snapshot there when we provide this report for you, what the activity was for each month going back 2.5 years. On the opposite side of the page, this just shows what the outstanding placements are. And what I want to draw your attention to this is look at the second section. It says offense age. So all the placements, all the accounts that we got in the last year where the offense was within a year old, we had 927 of those cases turned over to us. That means they were speeding a year ago, and we got the cases. We also, within that same time period, received 3,000 accounts, more or less, that were between 1 and 2 years. And then anything over 3 years, we got another amount. And all this shows you is that we're constantly collecting on your accounts. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm looking at the years right now. So these 2 to 3 years, 3+ years, are those accounts you already have presently that it's just kind of we've not been able to find people or for other cases?
We're constantly working it, yes. So either that or they're choosing not to pay. So we're going to keep sending letters. We're going to keep making phone calls. But the point is there's a constant collection effort. And I'll give you all the data that on where we are on all of those. It's kind of a long report, but it's there. This chart, again, I'm throwing a lot at you, but this talks about the placements. So if you look at this, if you go down, you see April, and then you see March, February, January. Look at December. In December, we were sent 125 cases that month. And of those 125, 7 were 2019 offenses. 65 of them were offenses that occurred in 2020, and 53 occurred in 2021. So again, this just goes to, we're not getting cases all the time that are a month, 2 months old. They're months old or years old. Look at August of 2021. We had 585 cases. 569 were from 2020. 12 were from 2019. Even 1 was from 2017. So again, there's a lot of juicy stuff in here that you can look at. The good stuff is what has been collected. The next page, you want to look at 2022 summary. We were provided so far 1,414 cases. Last year, over 4,000 cases were sent over to us. And so this just shows you the activity of your court. But already, 4 months into the year, we've got 1,400. Last year was a record year, and you can see by year, going back to 2017, what was handed out to our firm for collection. And it just gives you an idea of what your court is doing. This next chart shows you the collections for the last 18 months, the monthly collection, and you see swings. So if the first 4 months of this chart, we were in COVID. We had suspended mailings, but payments were still coming in. We were making phone calls, letting individuals know if you've suffered a COVID event, we'll code it as such. But it was a more passive collection instead of saying, hey, you need to contact the court because the court was closed or they got limited hours. But collections were still being made. They were just at a lower level. Then you see the next period where you see the high, that's a warrant roundup. We conduct 2 warrant roundups for the city a year. One in the spring to coincide with income tax returns, and then again in the fall. And so you see another blip in the fall around September, October. And then since then, it's just been going up and up and up. So let's see how far that trend goes. There's been a lot of money in the economy. We're kind of waiting to see when the end's going to stop. The economy is going through a rough time right now, so it's going to be interesting what the next couple months are. But right now, you're doing great. So collections are there. I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yes, sir. So from February, January through April, is there more phone calls being made? How exactly can we correlate that? Because that's a big jump on this,
It's only because there's phone calls being made, but they're combined with, and the letters are combined with income tax. So we may not send as many letters the next month, but we want to capture the high periods where there's a good chance of collecting.
So the scofflaw goes through income tax?
Scofflaw continues also, but you see the peaks at the same times of the year, and that's when generally money is out there. Yes, sir. And then this chart just shows what the annual collections have been for the last several years. Again, I point to from January to April, we're at $188,000. Last year, for the whole year, you were at $309,000. So something's happening. But the good thing is, what this shows is consistent collections, and I'm sure your finance department loves it because they can budget on that, and they have been able to. And then this chart shows over the last several years a cumulative collection. So almost $4.7 million, a little over $4.7 million collected through fees and fines collection.
Mr. Guevara, quick
Yes.
question. So on the first page, under dollar resolution rate, under contract to date, it says 68.8%.
Yep.
Is that your effectiveness at collecting the outstanding debt? Is that what that percentage means?
Yes and no. We report dollars collected, and we report resolution rate. Resolution rate is simply the accounts that have been paid, the accounts that have been adjusted by your court, and adjustments usually occur because maybe they're given credit for community service, or maybe there's a failure to appear added to the underlying fine, and maybe that is taken care of through some other means, and so that's subtracted. So that's an adjustment. But we give you a resolution rate because you gave us 1,000 accounts, and now you have 300 accounts. So 700 got resolved, whether they were paid in cash or they were resolved, through getting the defendant to come to court. Again, we send the defendant to you guys, and that's what we recommend. But if you want us to collect, we can do that as well. But so we report the resolution and we report dollars collected.
And how do we stack up against maybe comparable cities, kind of like Los Fresnos?
That's the next chart, right here. So if you look at this, this is a collection comparison. Los Fresnos right now, dollars collected, you're at 55%. 2 months ago, you were at about 54.2, something like that. So that went up. Total resolution rate at about 69%. Port Isabel is not as good as you guys. I mean, like I said, you all have been doing really, really well. The only one that comes close, Harlingen has a little bit better dollar collected rate and a little bit better resolution rate. But everybody else, you're beating. As a matter of fact, when we give examples throughout the state, Los Fresnos is the one we show because you're so you're doing very, very well. And so the chart on the right is just another way of showing what you're doing. You have consistently had good collections.
Back to that page one, so up on top for the April 2022 collections, it says 376 cases, a little shy of $120,000. Amount collected is close to 75,000. So that's 44,000 pending, I guess, on that account for the month. Is that how I'll break it down?
Yes and no. Remember that when you assign us the cases, those cases don't get paid right away. Usually, you're going to get an influx when we send out the first letter. You're getting a letter from a law firm. But the amount collected and the resolved cases are from work that was done prior, and they just happened to pay that month as we were getting new cases. So you kind of have to look at all of that kind of at the large picture. Good question, though. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How is that 30% calculated? Is it by the fines that are already paid? Is it monthly, weekly? How do you calculate those 30%?
The 30% add-on?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I understand the question. How is it calculated? Or
I'm sorry, the total amount that it's gonna be paid for you guys about that collection. Is it of the total amount that it was collected from the fines?
right, not resolved. It's
Not resolved?
Not resolved. It's whatever cash you get. Again, here's what happens. We direct somebody who wants to make a payment, we direct them to the court. Court accepts payment. If the court wants to put a payment agreement on them, they'll code it with a payment agreement. They'll take $20, there's a balance of $100. The court will then put that on their system that $20 have been paid, and we'll get 30% of the $20. But again, that $20 already has the add-on added on. So we're only getting paid of what is actually collected, not resolved.
So it's not $130, it'll still be $100?
It would be in that, I mean, what I think you're saying, if you got a fine of $100, the 30% gets added, now we're collecting $130. We're trying to collect $130. When they go to the court shows $130.
So if the judge gives a discount of, let's say, those $30 and we're back to 100, you're still 30%, right? Correct?
I get
off of
30%
that.
of whatever was paid, not, in other words, if the judge knocks it down, we get knocked down too. Yeah, we don't get anything more than what the judge says. If the judge wants to cancel the whole thing because it's a hardship, we don't get paid. And that's okay. The Texas Code of Criminal Procedure calls for that. I know that going in. That's why the statute says 30%. So with that 30%, we need to, you're going to have hills and valleys, but they want you to hire the best possible firm out there, and they know there's going to be some losses. There's going to be individuals who cannot pay. They're suffering from a hardship, but only the judge can remove that. And that's why you want to keep control with the judge. That's what I would recommend to you.
And how often are you guys paid? I'm sorry, we're new and I'm trying to understand this.
Usually there's an invoice generated every month, and that's based on the information that we get from the court. So there's always files going back and forth from the court, and so they're used to it. It's you're going to get 100% of what you're owed, and they're calculating that, and then we'll send an invoice along with a backup, and the court looks at that, confirms it, reconciles it, and then they issue a payment.
Do you guys have that report that shows the month, what it was collected, and the amount that you guys received with the 30%?
The court does. The court would have it. Yeah,
I would like to see those
I could,
reports.
if you asked me for it, I'd have to get it from the court. Because at that point, the file has already been taken away from us because it's been collected, it's been zeroed out, so we no longer see that file. We get the information from the court. So the court says, hey, you collected $50,000 this month, and they show the breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand too. So let's say somebody can't pay all at once, those $100, so they make a $30 payment and so on and so forth every month. Do we pay you after it's all collected, or is that a payment that goes prorated?
I think for the bookkeeping, I'm pretty sure you pay as they pay. Because otherwise it'd be a bookkeeping nightmare. You'd have to keep it on the books until it's totally paid off. So let's say, to keep it simple, let's say with the 30% add-on, there's a balance of $120 total. They only pay $12 a month, then we would get 30% of $12. If the judge says, I'm gonna reduce it, I'm gonna take out one of the failure to appear, like you have a leniency period, he takes it off, then we would get 30% of whatever the balance would be. Yeah, we fluctuate with what the judge orders, what the court orders.
Can you please include that in the report, the one that you mentioned that it was going to be turned into Mark, like the month, the amount that it was collected and the 30%?
I'll get with Mark and see how we can get you that report, and we can get that information to you. I'm gonna have to go to the court to see what they do, but that should be pretty easy to do. Yep. Thank you. Let's see. So that's a report in a nutshell. I've kind of given you an overview of, your consistent collections. I mean, you've just been really, really consistent. Be glad to answer more questions if you have them. That's what I'm here for.
Yes, sir. On page 4, I know I had mentioned, I had just touched on that 3+ years, about $2 million is what I see out pending, correct?
Let's see, page 4. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. On page 4, you're looking at, okay, where are
On
you
the
looking?
offense age, 3+ years,
Yes,
dollars outstanding payments out, those $2 million are money that's still looking to be collected?
Yes. So if you look at the grand scheme of things, let's look at,
So right next to that, you have 53.55% of
that just
account
means that
percent.
it's 55% of the portfolio that are 3 years or more old. And then there's 16.5% of the portfolio that's 2 to 3 years old, and so on. That's not a collection percentage, that's just a percentage of those accounts.
So the one next to that is the dollar percentage.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that amount, I know you showed a spreadsheet where some of the money that was given to collect was 2, 3 years old. Does that automatically show up on that particular line item, even though you just got it, even though the ticket's maybe from 2017? Would that show up in the 3+?
Are you talking about the same chart?
Yeah, I'm talking about the same chart.
Yes,
the
sir. Yes, it
1.9.
would. All it is an analysis of what you've given us.
Okay, it doesn't mean that you've taken 3 years and it still hasn't been collected. It just means that based on the age of the ticket, it shows up in that category.
Right,
Okay.
right. If you look at page 1, I'm going to refer you to, on the second grouping, second line, amount assigned, you've assigned $12,431 to us over the years. So the balance is $3 million. So again, we're always giving you what you've assigned to us, and then we're giving you an analysis of what we have left. And that, all this chart is just giving you bits and pieces of information so that you can go back and look. Hopefully, well, I'm gonna add on what we're getting from the fee. So we need to include that in this report, but yeah.
What about write-offs? Like if they're, like they don't die, you can't get a hold of them, the ticket's outstanding. Is there any summary here of how many are just written off? Or?
That would be done at the court level, and it would be under, that's another good question. Let me show you on page 1, look at the second grouping, and the amount canceled. It's about 3/4 of the way down. Amount canceled is about a little over $500,000. Since 2004, you've canceled $578,000 worth of tickets. All the rest are still in the queue somehow.
So we don't have a process to send those to a third party, maybe somebody who just, maybe you can collect them, maybe send them to somebody else as a last ditch effort?
Why don't you
Try
they
to-
outsource?
Well,
Try to outsource those last?
you're already putting the scofflaw into place. There might be, there's a reason. There's deaths, they're in Mexico,
Well, I know 2 million looks, if we can get those cleared out, I mean, that would help
Yeah.
us make a better idea of what's
Well-
left out there.
like you saw with where you are on the percentage collected, I mean, you're one of the tops in the state. So you've got an excellent collection rate, cash collection rate. So, yeah, you're basically sending letters and making phone calls. If you,
One call center in the state?
we have 2 call centers in the state, but San Antonio is our main call center for fees and fines for our area. They're backed up by our other call centers, like if the power went out or something happened, we could easily transfer its calls to another call center. Yeah.
Any more questions from the board?
In your report, you also have, in the appendix, it shows placement by age. And that's an interesting chart. It's several pages long. So, but it shows each year how much is owed or how much has been collected, so you can tell our efforts for older years than 2004.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, sir.
And you have a beautiful facility here. You should be proud of it. I used to work for the city of Los Fresnos years ago, and I was looking outside before we started, and I saw the generator. And at the old place, I remember that thing going on when, I haven't heard it come on, but it's a lot quieter. It must be a lot quieter than it was back then. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you again for being here.
I was just going to add, the question was the collection agency fees. They run, but depending on the year and the collections, between 35 and 45,000 a year over time. That's, I think you asked that question.
Thank you, Mark, for that clarification.
Curious, Mark, just before, with this construction, just, I know nothing I asked you before, just off at the top of your head, is that increasing fees or like fines? I don't know how much to stop police. I don't know, we're gonna have a police report or later. Are we getting more stops because of that?
I didn't hear the question.
Because he's trying to ask that if because of the construction, is that causing an increase in fines? But, I mean, we can talk about that during the manager's
No,
reports.
our fines have been pretty steady since 2004.
No major uptick.
Almost very consistent.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, not the fines, the number of citations.
All right, thank you for that. Moving on to the consent agenda items. We have a total of 5 consent agenda items. Is there any consent agenda items that any of the commissioners would like for me to pull before we take a vote? And pull, I mean, so that we can discuss further. If not, if there's a motion to be made. And is that all?
I second
5?
it.
Okay, that was all 5, just for clarification? Okay, so motion has been made by Commissioner Lopez and seconded by Commissioner Munoz. All those in favor signify by saying yes and raising your hand. Aye. And all those who oppose do the same. Motion does carry. Action item number 1, consideration and action to accept bids submitted to replace a ground storage water tank and authorize the city manager to issue a contract. Mark, anything you want to add on that, or
Not unless there's questions.
any questions from any of the commissioners?
We're purchasing a water tank Is that what's happening? To be put at the treatment plant?
Correct, replace the one that's there. Through time, it rust out. I think it's a 1980, early 80s, so we've gotten,
That's
Long
that big overhead one right next to the building?
yes.
What is the lifespan for those typical? I mean, are we within the range of how long?
Way
they last?
past it.
Way past it.
Yeah, probably 15 years past.
Oh, wow.
Is it the same material or it's a different one more?
Same material. You could go to composite and tanks and things like that, but it's 3 and 4 times as much, and it doesn't, the economics doesn't work out.
What about the capacity? Is it the same size?
Same, a little bit larger. I think this one is 128, and this one, the old one's 128, and this is gonna be 130. So, but close. 130,000 gallons.
And that should cover all the new construction that we're doing.
Yeah, we're still in good shape for capacity with it, and we have another 80,000 gallon ground storage tank, and then the 300,000 gallon water tower.
No more questions?
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make the motion on the consideration of action to accept the bid submitted to replace the ground storage water tank authorized by the city manager.
I second.
Okay, motion has been made by Commissioner Gonzalez and seconded by Commissioner Lopez. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. Moving on to action item number 2, consideration and action to approve requesting bids to install sidewalks on Whipple Road. I know that this has come up recently about the Whipple Road project, and
Mayor, I just want to mention now we're getting to the good stuff. I know that's what people.
well, with this particular project, I think what had been holding us back was they were working on a contract, and we didn't want to put the sidewalks in and then them have do the road and then destroy the sidewalks. Now, with that said, I'm not sure if there's a way that we can put the sidewalk in the position where it won't disturb the construction. Mark?
That's not possible.
Is there a way that, instead of building, concrete sidewalks, where we can, grade off a swatted land down the middle, pack it down, and then put some, crushed caliche or crushed rock, and it'll give the kids something to walk on besides the road?
The only problem is there's only 60-foot right-of-way there, and it's either the road or the bar ditch. There's really not anything else, and so they're gonna, that's one of the reasons why the sidewalk is so expensive. They have to account for that. And then as part of the upgrade to Whipple Road, the sidewalk, the turning lane, the drainage is all included in that project to do it once. So just one of the things that I ask, okay, how many kids are we talking about? Hearing some people talk, there's hundreds of kids. We've been monitoring, and 1 to 3 walk from the high school to the empty lot for their parents to pick them up, which that shouldn't happen. The parents really shouldn't be doing that. That's dangerous, number one. So that's 1 to 3, depending on the day. The others is anywhere a low from 7 to 12 walk from there down Whipple Road, and there's 3 or 4 streets. You got Hodges, Jacqueline, Valle Alto, went blank. Daisy Drive's the last one. But between there's between 7 and 12 kids that go. We have not seen any walk from Daisy, because there was, when this came up a couple years ago, there's a bunch of kids walking to the apartments. Well, we haven't seen that happen. And I'm not saying that 7 to 9 kids are not, or 12 kids are not important. They are, but in difference of spending almost $400,000 on the sidewalks and be torn out, you know, we could probably hire somebody to go take these kids home if that's our goal. I really think if I was a parent, I wouldn't allow my kid to walk on the street. And so I think that should be part of your discussion.
Is this one of those things that if you build it, they will come, more people will use it just because now it's available? I know.
Absolutely. I think there's probably already some parents that might let their kids walk if it was safe on the sidewalk, but don't let them. I absolutely think that's true.
I know on the consent agenda, we were talking about the plat of already that Whipple area. And is there access to that sidewalk where the kids don't have to walk around the whole neighborhood to enter it or cut through the roads? Just a quick little inlet from sidewalk to, let's say, a roundabout or one of those dead end.
I'm not sure what you asked.
Okay, so I know that like there's a cul-de-sac somewhere in there between Bongavilla and the other roads, the new road's Daisy or something like that. You know how the road just ends in that old cul-de-sac? Easter Lily's perfect. Thank you. Would there be able to kind of discuss with development of a sidewalk that could be able to hit those cul-de-sacs so more kids would be able to?
There's land, there's properties right there. I don't even know where they would go in.
The only reason is because we're gonna build that sidewalk, and a lot of those kids are gonna be living in those neighborhoods. Their only entrance would be through Bongavilla all the way through into the main road by the canal.
If you've been in that neighborhood, it's only about 3 or 4 homes before there's a side street that takes you to the other, so it's not a long walk.
Okay.
To walk on one of those streets and down about 3 or 4 homes and then over to your street.
Perfect, that was my concern. I just didn't see if they had to walk all the way to Walmart.
And the concern I have is people tend to think that we're responsible if somebody gets hit by a vehicle. And, you know, I'm not an attorney. We have an attorney, but, you know, kids shouldn't be walking on the road. And I know that's not a responsibility of ours, but we do hear it. And, you know, we don't want to have those conversations, you know, what is it going to take to put that sidewalk in? So kind of stuck there. I know that you had a follow-up in regards to the engineering with that and wanted to see maybe if they shared with us some kind of time frame of when they predict this to happen.
Yes, I talked to Pete Sepulveda, he's an administrator at Cameron County Regional Mobility Authority, which is the firm that the city has overseen the project with the engineers and TxDOT. The engineer that they currently have didn't work out for whatever reason, meet requirements that they had and what TxDOT wanted, and so they terminated their engagement with them. They're going to hire someone else tomorrow at their meeting. They feel confident that they can get the final engineering from the point it is here and preliminary engineering to final engineering within 12 months, which then it would leave it open to begin the process to going out for bid. Don't mistake that thinking that they're gonna start construction in 12 months. I would say, y'all know how long it takes
2.5
to
years,
get those
about
in place. Probably another 6 months after that. So we're looking at a year and a half, into summer to end of fall of 2023, before construction could begin. And that would be, I think, best case scenario.
So the sidewalks that we're gonna open the bids for, if we do approve, that would be done simultaneously when that intra-governmental project gets started, or we're doing that before?
If you don't take any action tonight, well, then the sidewalk is part of the plans that will be done with the street and the sidewalk, and gonna have a turning lane, drainage, utility relocation, possible purchase of right-of-way, pretty complicated.
Mark, would it be cheaper just to put a road hump in that road, and that way cars would have to slow down? That could reduce the possibility of a traffic accident?
It's a very
or
busy
a
road, though.
run over? I'm just giving a suggestion.
I'm pretty against road humps. I think the people that drive slow, already driving slow, the people that drive fast will then drive fast over the road hump and be more dangerous than if there wasn't one. That's, I've seen that a lot.
I see a lot of cars speed through there since I live there. I constantly see them going 45, 50. And I know the police officer hides at that church to give tickets.
parks.
And so I just kind of figured a road hump would at least slow them down as they're entering into that area. But, I mean, that's just my observation. I just feel like if we don't take action, there's going to be, you know, some backlash from some of the community people about not being able to take action on that. So kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place. But I don't agree with spending $563,000 on a sidewalk project that'll get destroyed in about a year and a half or two.
Another thing, right now, we have a construction in Highway 100. If we start another one in Whipple Road, it's gonna be a chaos through all that area, back and front.
If,
I didn't hear that.
Another thing is that if we start a construction there, of course, it's gonna be removed in a year and a half. We're gonna have construction in Whipple Road and Highway 100 that it's not over yet, so it's.
I also gave you the breakdown of an option, that you could do half of that. I'm still not for it, but, you know, if you felt that you did need to do the sidewalk, make it 5 foot wide, that's the minimum it needs to be for handicap accessible and the turnarounds of those, and only do it to Daisy Drive, which is the last entrance to that subdivision that's there, currently there. And that, instead of, with the contingency, almost $600,000, it drops it to $400,000 with the contingency. Still, in my opinion, $400,000 is better used at repairing streets, because whatever you do here will take off of what we were planning on doing street repair. Just economics, you take from there, you put over here. So it's tough decisions you'll have to make.
But it will be destroyed in whenever they do the.
2 years,
Potentially,
3 years.
potentially.
the sidewalks on Highway 100 across the park and everywhere else on whatever side they're doing, have they all been destroyed, or have we salvaged sidewalks space, I guess, next to the road where they're building?
I don't understand the question.
So when TxDOT's moving into Highway 100 and they're tearing up a new section, do they just take that sidewalk with them too, or have they been able to salvage the sidewalks in place already?
They're redoing them all to meet ADA standards. If you look, they're pretty bad along 100, and so they're all brand new. They weren't wide enough to meet ADA standards, and a lot of cracks and broken sidewalks along 100, and so they're totally being redone as part of that project.
You know, Mark, I know you made an observation of the amount of children that are traveling down that road of Whipple, and you shared that with us. If the traffic would ever pick up with children, I know schools are out to end, but I mean, it'd be cheaper to put a police officer right there on Whipple Road or on that church for an hour while kids get let out. I think that'll be a lot cheaper than taking a $400,000 cost.
Although that's something that's really needed, and I think we can all agree on that Whipple Road and the fact that it's a very trafficked area, and not only by that, but yeah, I mean, I remember walking those streets too, and I'm sure most of you all that lived here had done it in the past, so we all know what that trouble is. Spending it right now is kind of hard because we do have a lot of streets that do need to get paved, and if it's going to be $500,000, that's going to pretty much disappear in 2 years whenever those roads do get worked on. It kind of makes it difficult, and while I agree it's getting faster, in terms of the population, how they're using that road, I'm kind of inclined not to work on that sidewalk yet.
I'd say we revisit this at a later date when we get some more indication that this project is coming to fruition within a year and a half. Then possibly we can make that decision at that point. But I just think there's hope there that we can possibly get this done as short as a 2-year time frame or a year and a half. So with that said, is there a motion to be made? So all those in favor of making no motion, or do we just say no motion? No motion. All right, at this time, no action will be taken on action item number 2. Moving on to number 3, consideration and action to appoint a new member to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Place 4. And we have one candidate, is that correct, Juan Sierra? Any questions from the council? If there's a motion to be made,
I'll go ahead and start the motion to approve said candidate for the Planning and Zoning Board.
I'm sorry, did Commissioner Munoz make a motion?
Yes, I second the motion.
Okay, so motion was made by Commissioner Gonzalez and seconded by Commissioner Munoz. Okay, I didn't hear it. All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
And all those who oppose do the same. Motion carried. Moving on, consideration and action to approve the absences of Mr. Polo Narvaez from the March 8th, 2022 meeting, April 12th, 22 meeting, April 27th, 22 meeting of the city council meetings. Now, to my understanding, we're doing this so that if he was to not be able to return back, election is coming up in November, and this will put it in line with the November election versus if we don't accept these, we'd have to have a special election, and there'll be an additional cost. This can also give him 3 months to hopefully get some good news, God willing, that perhaps he may be able to come back. So since he's sick, Mark believes that this is a standard process, and then we can take another decision in a few more months. Any questions or comments?
Is he able to Zoom?
No.
So 3 months from now, we're gonna be doing the same, excusing 3 more?
No.
We'll do this meeting next month and the next meeting the next month. Jackie worked out a calendar, and you have until August the 12th to make a decision. That needs to be a time where there's several things that you could do besides absence. By then, there will be probably about 6 absences, which, but if they're not,
Yeah, that's my question,
if
Mark.
they're unexcused, well, then it still applies, but there's also a clause in there that says, a council member or mayor may be removed from office by majority vote because of incompetency, official misconduct, or intoxication. One of the incompetency is just you don't have the ability or condition, the power to be effective any longer, and so be able to perform. And so that could come into play as we go down the way if.
Sorry, Mark. I guess the question that I have in terms of everything, right? I know that the initiatives were passed for specific reasons, was for us to be able to have our council be able to work and have everybody here. That's possible. I just want to make sure that we are legally able to give that excuse and it's not something direct, because it was an initiative, so I don't remember exactly how it was written out, but can we legally give that an excuse to one of our own council members? Correct, as a body ourselves. Okay, so, I mean, that's just the main thing. I just want to make sure that in the initiative, we're not breaking any mandate that the public voted on.
So on the table tonight is 2 regular meetings and a special meeting. The way the charter reads is, fail to attend 3 consecutive regular council meetings, without being excused by the council. So if you took no action tonight, there would be nothing to do until next meeting. If you didn't excuse that one, there would be 3 regular consecutive meetings that he missed. And if you didn't unexcuse them, well, then that would set the stage for removal from office at the next meeting in July. Because of the law, we would have to hold a special election in October in order to do that. So you would have a special election in October to fill an unexpired term for a year and a few months. And then the next month you would have an election for the 2 places that are up. By waiting until July 21st or after, and as Jackie worked out as the meeting in August, you could take that action, and then if there's no change by then, well then at that time you call a special election that would coordinate with the regular election November the 8th with the others, so that we wouldn't have to pay for 2 elections, because we would have to pay for the whole thing ourselves because there's no other elections going on. One of the things that we do is share the cost.
So we're 1 month off from starting a special election to being able to have a November election, if that would be the case. Is that what you're saying about?
To wait until that July 21st, or if you wanted to call a special meeting at that time, but we could also wait till the August meeting at a regular meeting, and then you have from now till then to see if things change, and if things change, well, that's wonderful. If they don't, well, then you make that decision at that time. It's actually only right now been 3 months. It really seemed longer. If it does to me, I'm sure the family much longer, but we've had in years past people, because of work or other arrangements, been longer than this, for particular reasons.
So if we approve, we can come back in 2 months and then do this again, and then that would lead us into the November election. Is that correct?
Correct, in August. But I recommend that we put next month, put today's absence on for you to say either excused or unexcused.
I just want to make sure that we don't jump into where we don't have those months because we've excused them, and then we can't get onto that November docket or ballot, I guess, whoever. That's the main thing. I guess if anything, just kind of you can guide us on that action. That way we can give Polo the opportunity that definitely he deserves.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the absences for Polo Narvaez from March 8th, April 12th, and April 27th, city council meetings.
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And all those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. Moving on to action item number 5, consideration and action to approve a change order number 7 for the wastewater treatment plant headwork system improvement project. Any questions or comments?
No money involved, just time so that we can close the project out.
Is there a motion to be made?
I move that we approve the change order number 7 for the wastewater treatment plant.
I'll second that motion.
All right, motion has been made by Commissioner Lopez and seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez. With all those signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Aye. And all those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. Discussion on city limits, extraterritorial jurisdiction, and annexation procedures.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this has come up a couple of times from some of you, so I thought it would be a good evening to spend a little bit of time to show you and give you some information. The first one, if you'll go to the map that says number 1, I don't know what we have up there or what we don't. Okay, we don't, never mind, don't put that one up there then. The first one is your city limits map, and if you see where the dark line is, the real heavy line, that's our city limits. Any questions about that? It's pretty straightforward. It shows where our city limits goes, and
The dotted lines, Mark, are just.
and then the second one, yeah, the dotted line is our ETJ, and you can see it better on the second one. That's the north side ETJ. And if you'll look on the left side here, that borders up to Brownsville city limits. So you can't go any further than that because Brownsville city limits is here and it comes like this. And so that's as far as we can go to the west. To the north, it is as far as we can go now because it's the 1 mile. If you'll notice on where Indian Lake is, you see a block cut out there from Whipple Road all the way to, I think it's Kretz Road, and that's their ETJ that they could develop into if they wish in the future, and we stay out of that. As you can see, we can go to both, almost all sides of Indian Lake at some point in the future. Los Fresnos could completely surround Indian Lake. You can see kind of north of Cuautitlán subdivision, that's our northernmost city limit. So you can see that bow that bows out there a mile to there, and then across as you come towards the east, and we go right now to right about Bob's World to our east here. On the south, as you go south, if you'll go to page number 3, that shows you the south side. And pretty much some of this is wrong along 1847 because it's Brownsville actually on the west side where Pallet Pro ends. That's where Brownsville city limits and ETJ starts on the west side. On the east side, it's a little bit different. That's owned by the developers that are developing here, and it develops all the way from 1847 around here to 100. So you can see those lines. The rest of that starts running into Brownsville. So to our south, we don't have very much ETJ to move because it's Brownsville. If you show the next map, the one that you had first, Dale, and go to number 4 that I gave you, and that shows Brownsville city limits, and he'll also bring it up. In 2009, 2012, we were able to negotiate with them, with the city of Brownsville, to give us the area around 803 and north so that we could take in Los Fresnos United and Palmdale and all that area, all the way back to where the housing authority is, the housing, Las Palmas, I think is what it's called. Is that what it is? From there over was already Brownsville city limits. We were able to negotiate with them, and they gave that to us in 2012 and released that to us in exchange for some ETJ South, which we didn't really want anyway. In 2009, in another set of negotiations, we were able to negotiate with them to the north and west and east, because in 2009, the city of Los Fresnos before that time, only had a half a mile ETJ. And so Brownsville had taken up all the ETJ except for half a mile. Once we reached 5,000, we could go to a mile ETJ, but we couldn't because it was already claimed ETJ by the city of Brownsville.
So that's what limited was population size, that's kind of what,
Yes, city of Brownsville can go 5 miles because of their size of city.
and they could do it at how many intervals would they be able to extend that? Back in the day, I know that was many years ago.
Yes, in the 90s. And so when they did that, if you'll see the purple on the west there, that goes right on our city limits where a welcome sign is. That next parcel is Brownsville city limits, and it goes all the way to the north towards Rio Hondo. There was a lot of discussion.
Yeah, Lozano, I believe it goes up to Lozano area and.
You can see that, and that was done legally in the 90s because it was legal. They could not do that today, but because they did that, all of the ETJ to the north of Los Fresnos and Indian Lake was solid Brownsville. But because of the agreement we were able to make with them, from the purple line to the purple line is our ETJ, and to 2893, which is about right there, Dale. I've got a pointer, if I know how to do it. How does it work? There it goes. That don't work good enough. Anyway, 2893, that's our northern boundaries that we will be able to go to sometime in the future. Just so you know, we cannot go there. So one of the annexation procedures is it has to be contiguous land.
Now, now that we're on that area, county has jurisdiction on building codes on that area, correct?
Correct.
Does our codes match county codes?
No.
If you would say how far off, can you give a percentage?
I can't tell you that, but I know the county does not have zoning powers. The state of Texas has never given counties the power to regulate zoning. What that means is, well, you can see down Highway 100, out of those of you who've been around here a long time know that the city limits used to end at the canal before O'Reilly's was there or Lopez. All of that was farmland. From there on, you can see houses, and then you see a business, and you see a house and a business, and you go, why did they do that? It was because it was county, and county doesn't have the power to regulate zoning. Cities only do. We can, even though we have been giving an agreement with the city of Brownsville going over, Dale, it goes all the way to the purple. We have been given the agreement with Brownsville that they won't get into that area. And that goes all the way over to Sheriff 28 right there and goes down.
Who initiated, back in 2009, this move? I mean, was this initiated by the council, or how does this come about?
Myself and David Winstead was the mayor then. It actually started with a legal fight between all of the cities in Cameron County and Brownsville. Los Fresnos decided not to get in the legal fight. We decided to be a neighbor and a friend, and the neighbor and friend worked and was able to secure that ETJ area, as well as a few years later, the city limits around 803, which was Polo and I worked with that, as well as Henry and the relationships he built with the Brownsville attorneys. In fact, at one day, they just called him in 2012, I think it was, and said, hey, we're ready to talk. We had been talking all through this time, but they said, no, but they were ready, and so they called Henry, and we went and sat down and says, we're ready to do it. What do you give us? And some of that ETJ, it wasn't even our city limit. So the rest of the cities lost out because their annexation was done legally. And so they lost. And of course, Brownsville wasn't willing to work with them because they sued them. We continued to be a friend. And so it was, we were able to secure a great future for Los Fresnos.
So what do we need to expand further out? I mean, what are we waiting for? Is there like a certain time or?
The law changed in 2017 for large cities and then 2019 for small cities, where you can't annex any longer the way that we had annexed to go to the west. We did 2 annexations, one from just past the school to Tapia. No, I'm sorry. One from Villa del Sur Drive all the way to Tapias. That was a half a mile. And then the next half a mile, when Brownsville, we had the exchange with Brownsville, we went from Tapias to there by Las Palmas. That kind of annexation cannot occur any longer. When we were able to do that, you can do a parcel of 99 homes or less. And so we could do that then. The state law now says that those people have to request you to annex them. So
What's the number? What percentage do we need of a subdivision, let's say of 100 households?
I can't remember the numbers. It's in this, we gave you this. I'd have to look specifically, but there's a request that can be made, and then you have to hold an election. If you hold the election and only those people get to vote, they vote to whether they enter into the city.
And how do
There's
people-
another piece to that is a 3-year plan. And some of that's still in effect and some of it went away in 2019.
Because we are servicing them with sewer already, or in most areas?
Sewer and water have nothing to do with city limits boundaries or the potential for city limit boundaries. Case in point, from 1575 all the way to the west is served by Almita Water Supply for sewer. And then on the south side, Almita Water Supply for water, and East Rio Hondo for water on the north side. It's called a CCN, Convenience of Need and Necessity, I think it is. I think one of those words wrong. But a CCN, and that's regulated by Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, and it was set up years and years ago, and so people and different entities took areas, and once you have that area, it doesn't change because city limits change.
They'll continue to service, so if we would extend, they would still be making payments to East Rio Hondo, because their water lines, I'm assuming?
For their water. And then, like say someone at the corner of 1575 and 2893, which is the far north, right in the center, if they tomorrow came to us and says, we want you to annex us, election or not, we could not, because it's not contiguous with our city limits. So it has to be contiguous. We've had some people that are, a half a mile away, and there's 10 property owners between them and us. In order for them to be annexed, they have to convince those 10 property owners to get annexed, and then them.
How do they know to do that? I mean, really, do they really know they can do that? Or are they aware? Or how can you get them to be aware of being able to come and request that? Most of them probably don't even know that they could do that.
Oh, I'm sure few of them do.
Most of them live there because they don't want to be in the city, just honestly.
So it's
I do-
basically you're saying
they
like
know.
it won't ever happen, I guess is what you're saying, as long as. those
Well,
people-
there has to be the right incentive, motivation, and at the same time, you gotta know how to talk to these families as well, because it's an invested interest for not just not that town, La Ruelas itself, it's part of us, it's Los Fresnos. So on
Can-
that
I have a
aspect,
question.
sorry,
Can this
Mayor.
be done as the previous year when it was a good communication and made the arrangement? Or it has to be the election or talk to the people and all that?
I didn't hear.
Can we annex to the city limit these people with a good relationship with the neighbors or friends? Or it has to go through the election and all the process?
I guess anybody could ask that, but the request has to come from them.
Now, my
Just from them? Like, this arrangement cannot be done like the previous one that it was done in 2012 that you mentioned?
Correct. The state legislature made it illegal. The reason why they did that is they felt that cities were annexing people that did not want to be annexed into the city limits. They bought in the county because they wanted to be in the county, and they did not want to be in the city limits. So the state legislature said, we agree with you in the county, and so we're changing the law to where that can't happen anymore.
Okay.
The only way it can happen now is what they call a voluntary, yes, I want to come in the city. I'll give you a good example of where I live in Aqua subdivision. I think there's 60 lots or something like that in there. If that would ever want to go in the city, those neighbors, and there's a percentage, would have to agree to petition for it. Then they would have to hold an election, and everybody
Specifically
in
to
that
that road only.
subdivision would have a vote. Yes, I want to be annexed, or no, I do not want to be annexed. Whatever that vote, we would have to hold an election at a uniform election date, and then those people would decide, yes, they would come in, or no, they wouldn't.
Is that an election that would be like a normal November election? So it would be paid and by us through the county to provide that service?
Correct, we would have to pay for that.
The one, I know we have up on top, between Stanford, there's a little box that creeps up from that elbow that you had mentioned. So we're on the south side of Stanford, I'm assuming? There is a subdivision that just opened up on the north side. So we would need one house on that north side to start that north side climb. It's for it to be contiguous.
Yes. Well, they could do it by subdivision, but then the whole subdivision would,
My only reason I'm asking is because for the same other question that I asked you about county and we talked about they can't zone like that, we're getting growth all around us. And that is within our ETJ. For me, my concern is to make sure we have houses that are at code or close to code, because if we ever have to annex in the future and that's within our zone, I would like to make sure that we don't run into a situation where we're having to deal with how Bronzeville looped around Cameron Park. Right. At that point, we want to make sure that when we go, if we go, and the people allow us to, that we're not picking and choosing neighborhoods now. So while there's a lot of new construction happening over there, and the county cannot zone, the county can deny until we are ready to start making those talks with those community members. At that point, can we ask the county to hold off on any open construction in our ETJ until we get a proper assessment of what we're gonna do or what can happen up north?
No, they're not gonna stop development.
And that is because,
You want development,
I agree, we do. My concern is making sure that development can fit into what we're trying to do here too. Because that is within our ETJ.
I don't know how to answer that.
Would it be a question we could make to one of our commissioners?
Sure, but I'm confused, so maybe,
Well, I mean, I know we're talking about all all possibilities, right? My thing is, does the county have, like you said, they may not want to stop. But if they are convinced that it's good while we assess the future of Los Fresnos for the time being, to help us, to give us some time so that we are able to discuss the future growth or if it's even possible, to discuss with those developers that are going into those areas in advance. If they can comply, like you said, we don't know how close they are to our compliance. That's a concern for me. And at that point, if we ever start jumping into that area, those are gonna be issues we would probably have to deal with. That I'm trying to see if we can cut now before that growth, kind of gets away from whatever we're gonna be trying to be doing out here. And by doing, I mean a vision for Los Fresnos, a whole composite vision, guys. I understand we have the ETJ here and we can see the troubles that we're getting, just because we are landlocked already. My thing is, we need to take advantage of the ETJ we do have now too, because we are limited. Our space is limited right now. Every single acre out there is valuable real estate, right? And those people that live there at the same time understand that, and for good reason. They chose to live there. We need to give them an opportunity to know how welcoming we are as a community. Because that is part of our zone and that is part of Los Fresnos.
No, this was just a discussion at this time. I guess for the sake of time, we can always follow up with that and put it back on the agenda if we want to continue. But any other concerns or questions? All right, moving on to acknowledgement of city managers' reports. Is there a motion or any questions in regards to this? Mark, the hike and bike trail, I think it started right by the drainage ditch, along the other side of Highway 100. When do we foresee that to be complete?
in a couple months. They've lined and put the concrete on most of it. So getting pretty well along.
How is the project coming along for, that 5th Street or 10th Street, with that drainage backup? We were doing some stuff there. I don't know how, I know we were starting a project to fix roads and manholes and stuff like that. Where are we at with that project?
Again, the 5th Street and 10th Street, y'all agreed to not do that.
Okay, but I think the drainage ditch, what we were gonna work on was gonna kind of help out a little bit, or?
Yes, there's, under, pretty extensive, let me see where it is. Yeah, J, pretty extensive, addressed East 10th and East 5th Street and what we've done up to this point. And then, last time you agreed to, hire an engineer to, deal with sewer lines along, Alamo Street, Como Street, and several others that, we are gonna do that are on the schedule for upgrading the street At the same time, they will get new manholes, new sewer lines. All of that goes in to help East 10th and East 5th Street. Do we know that one will be the tipping point of making it? I can't tell you that. But I do know that any that we repair and get to where drainage water does not seep into our sewer lines, the better we will be in East 10th and East 5th Street. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I saw it on
Doesn't
here. so-
directly
And-
address it, but that's a lot of things that go into that issue.
Okay. And the other one I have a question on is the Highway 100 Tech Stop project. I have been getting concerns from, for example, like Julia's Restaurant. I know that there's a side entrance on that little road, but, you know, they've kind of blocked out that whole main parking lot. So I was wondering, do you know what the status is on the project? Are they still on time to finish? Or do we know when they should finish with that project?
I don't think that there's a time.
Didn't you say April or May, and then now it's August or September
Yeah,
or
they say
something like that?
August, but, I mean, we're May, and if you look at what's happened since February, if you recall, they finished the intersection the week of the rodeo and moved that week after the rodeo, so that's the last, would be the last full week of February. We're not quite 3 months, and they have not finished the north side. So let's say they finish it in another month, that'll be 4 months. So that'll put us June, the end of June. So then you got July, August, September, October at the minimum if things go the way they've been going.
Just a lot of frustrated residents.
Julia's, I saw the comments, that street has never been closed. And that's probably the only one on the north side. So they've had it better than anyone. And the alleys, we've put them to where you can go both ways so that people can come in and out. Most of the other streets have been closed for times. In front of Wingstop, the only way you could get there is go around the backside. Dairy Queen, the only way you could get there is go around the backside. Walmart, McDonald's, same way. So I feel for everyone, but they're doing the best they can and keeping them open as much as they can. That street there, which is Brazil Street, will be closed towards the end of the project, but that has to be coordinated with TxDOT because that section between where they're finishing up in front of Julia's to about in the middle, about where the post office is, will be done in one section as well. But TxDOT won't let them do that until later. So, all we do is just tell them, open it up. We have asked for that, but in his case, they haven't ever been closed.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark, on Whipple Road, where the old canal used to be, they're digging it out and putting it underground, I believe, in a pipe. Is that part of our jurisdiction in terms of can we do a bike trail or something on that over existence, or is that something that's to the developer as they wish?
I don't know where you're talking about on Whipple, maybe Henderson?
Yeah, sorry, Henderson.
Yeah, maybe it's an easement, but it doesn't lead anywhere, so I don't,
I'm just trying
maybe
to
in the
look.
future, but
Yeah.
today it doesn't go anywhere, so it wouldn't
I'm
be.
just trying to see like if we would continue a continuation of the bike trail or something, could we throw down there into the Resaca back where that be on the other side of Cuates neighborhood? Could be a possibility.
I have a question regarding the natural park. I don't know if I can discuss it in this section? Yes, no?
I can't hear you.
Oh, I have a question regarding the natural park. Can I discuss it in this section, or it has to be?
Yeah,
Yes?
we have it there
Okay.
listed.
It was brought into my attention that there's a flyer stapled to the trees. And they have some information. They were asking me if maybe we can do it in another way, not to be stapled directly to the trees. Maybe what's it called?
Bulletin board?
A bulletin board or something like that. And maybe include a barcode. That way, whenever you go, just scan it and pop up the information about the nature park. Another thing, maybe we could add a box, a book box. That way people can drop up a book, get another one. I know that there's some benches there, maybe read a book and then put it back, and whoever would like to donate, leave a book and then take it and bring another one.
Is it the nature
It was
park?
just, yes, the one that it's by, in front of the, yes, that one.
As you reach in, there's a snake, and oh man, you know.
So those were two of the options that they approached me.
Anything and concern that I know, who would be in control of that? Would that be not the planning and zoning? Would that be the
Just me.
CDC?
No, just talk to Mark.
Just let me,
Yeah,
give me a call,
Anything that needs to get
and
done
those
that you've
things
heard?
we'll talk about.
Yeah, have you heard of anything, suggestions in terms of the park that we would want to move on? I know she's mentioned a good one, that's pretty good, that bulletin board.
We have a master plan that y'all looked at and approved, so those are the things that we'll be doing in future as money becomes available and
Like when we
budget.
needed the bike repair station, and we talked to Mark, and we put a little bike repair station out there, so just go with him with an idea, and he'll be able to elaborate more on that. At this moment, is there any?
Not stapling stuff to tree shouldn't happen anyway in a nature park. Book box, the only thing I say to that, who's gonna do that? That becomes a job that someone's gonna go put new books and be sure they're maintained and everything, so all of that is a cost. They're neat ideas, but it'd be better if that's done volunteer and, someone takes that as a project to do.
I'll try to see if the school would want to enter with this, because I know they have a lot of books. I know in terms of excess, right? If maybe we can get some of those novels or something else, and we can have a club from the high school, maybe run that and kind of at least give that service too. That way the city doesn't have to worry about it too much, and we give some kids some community service hours.
But I'm not saying no, because if you tell me that if this council says we want a book box and you want someone to maintain it, well, then we will do that. It just costs labor, and so they're not doing other things. So all of that is, we can do whatever you give direction to, but they have a cost to them unless you get somebody to, hey, you know what, that's gonna be my volunteer time.
I'm still waiting on the mural to be done there in the park, we've been waiting on that like a year. But any other questions, or anybody wants to make a motion?
Just something I want to put on the record. I know we were talking about that sidewalk and we were talking about Whipple Road. I know we're a little off, but I just want to say that about 2 months ago, I actually saw a police officer stop and give 2 kids a ride, got them off that road and took them to the high school. So I don't know who the officer was, but I thought that was awesome. So I know everybody's in concern with that too. So, and we actually have people taking action when they can.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to acknowledge of the city manager's reports.
I second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. Acknowledgement of department head reports. Any questions or a motion?
One of the things I wanted to bring up is on page 64. I'm sorry, it's not 64 either. Page 99, that's municipal court report. That's in your, it
You said
actually starts
municipal?
on 100 and 101.
Okay.
And that's in your package every month and has been for forever. And it tells you cases that were done and then collections on the back page. We will add the 30%. We haven't tracked of the 30% collected because we don't get that. So that has never been what we cared about. We cared about the money that is brought to the city, and so, but there's no problem adding a line to that. As you can see, about 50% of it goes to the state of Texas, and fines. So I know that you look at that report and well, if we had just a little bit more, we could have more to do. Know that about 50% of it is not gonna stay with the city, because of, it's a state fee that's added on a ticket.
Now, those codes, Mark, coincide with the codes that I'm seeing on this paper as well? Yeah.
It's just set out differently.
Thank you, Mark, for showing us those reports. Any other questions or motion on acknowledgement of department head reports?
I move that we accept the acknowledgement of the department head reports.
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made by Commissioner Lopez and seconded by Commissioner Fernandez. All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those who oppose do the same. At this moment, it's 7:47. We will close the meeting down and move into a closed session. I'll be right back. So the time is 8:27. Closed session closed, and we authorize our city manager to proceed. We don't need to vote on that, right? Perfect. Okay, at this time, we'll open the meeting back up at 8:27, and also we'll go ahead and close the meeting at 8:27. At this time, the meeting is, well, hold on. What's this open, okay. Okay, just opening the session. Okay, meeting closed 8:28.